it's, if you look at one of those stomata up close, what you can find is that those stomata can open and close depending on what the plant needs. If the plant is trying to actively take in carbon dioxide because it's doing photosynthesis, it'll have its little mouths open. There's going to be lots of carbon dioxide outside. It's going to be using up the carbon dioxide on the inside. So that carbon dioxide is going to flow into the little mouths. And at the same time, when you have that mouth open, the water is just going to accidentally escape. The plant would rather it not, but if you have those little pores open, there's lots of water inside the leaf and often not a lot outside, and so that water is going to just kind of squeeze its way out and sneak out while the carbon dioxide is coming in. In times of drought, or maybe when a plant isn't doing photosynthesis, it's going to close up those stomata so that the water does not escape when it doesn't need to have carbon dioxide coming in. Okay? So those stomata can open and close depending on what the plant needs it to do. And these stomata are the key to understanding how it is that water goes up a tree. The key is that the water is constantly evaporating out of the leaves. It's part of that water cycle that we've talked about, that transpiration process, if you remember, that the water is constantly leaking out of the leaves of the tree. And because it does so, it's actually pulling up all of the other water molecules behind it in that tiny xylem straw. So as the water molecules evaporate, the other molecules are sticking together. Remember how the ears of our Mickey Mouse waters are a little bit positive and the bodies, the little red heads, are a little bit negative? So it's that little kind of positive-negative attraction that's allowing these water molecules to stick together. And because they stick together, if you pull one water molecule out the stomata, then all the other molecules behind it are kind of pulled in. And in addition, that helps pull water out of the ground and into the roots themselves. So it's this process of evaporation and water molecules sticking together that allows the water to flow up. And we can compare that to how the veins in an animal work, because veins in an animal work in a very different way. For instance, you might think that the veins in an animal are in a circular loop, right? They go from your heart to your arteries, to your capillaries, to your veins, and then back to your heart again. It's a continuous circle. Whereas here, it's an open circle. It comes in through the roots, it leaves through the leaves, and it's not the same water molecules constantly going around in a circle, in a circular path. And another difference is that our heart, we have a physical heart that actually pumps the blood and forcibly moves it through the system. Here, there's no forcing at all. It's simply that the water molecules evaporating out the leaves are actually kind of pulling along all of the water behind it. So at this point, we now have all of the starting materials for photosynthesis in the leaves where we want photosynthesis to happen. We have the water up there, we have the carbon dioxide up there, we have chloroplasts and light energy, and so we are going to have everything we need to create glucose. So we're going to make a glucose molecule. To do this, you're going to need some materials. So you need to go to the home page on Vista for Bio 101. You're going to download the handout there that's called Glucose Molecule Pieces. Print that handout out, and then there's a bunch of little circles. So you need to cut out all of those little circles, and then when you've cut them all out, then you can continue on to the next segment of the lecture. So you've hopefully cut out all of your pieces. You should, at this point, have 18 oxygen pieces, 12 hydrogen pieces, and 6 carbon pieces. So these little pieces are in the approximate sizes representing the approximate weights of each of these atoms. They're relative to the size. So for instance, the hydrogens are tiny because hydrogens as atoms are tiny, and carbons and oxygens are much bigger, therefore the oxygens and carbons are larger circles. Okay. What you're first going to do is you're going to make 6 water molecules. So take your little pieces and arrange them like this. You're going to have 6 little water molecules all in a row. And then I also want you to make 6 carbon dioxide molecules. with a carbon in the middle of 2 oxygens. And you should have enough pieces to make these 6 water molecules and 6 carbon dioxide molecules. These are the ingredients for your photosynthesis process. So as you are arranging your 6 water molecules, I also want you to have a pencil ready, because what I want you to do is I want you to mark a little like dot or something on top of each of the molecules or each of the atoms that happens to be part of the water. Okay, so put a little dot on each of the hydrogens and put a little dot on those 6 oxygens that are where the water comes from. Does this make sense? So now you have a little dot on each of the things that are coming from the water. Because remember that question I started off the class with, where does the bulk of the kind of matter in a tree come from? What we want to do is we want to find out if it's coming from the water or if it's coming from the carbon dioxide. And most of you thought that it's coming from the water, so we're going to follow the water. We're going to see where that water goes, okay? All right, so now that we've done that, we are going to start building our we're going to be building our glucose. So the first step in terms of making a glucose is that you're going to rip the hydrogens off of each water. So you're just going to move the hydrogens and separate them from the water. That's the thing that the light is actually doing. The light is activating that chlorophyll protein, that green protein. And that chlorophyll protein's allowing those waters to get ripped apart. And once that does that, once the chlorophyll helps rip all of the hydrogens off, what will happen next is that you're going to rip one of the oxygens off of each of the carbon dioxide. So now you're going to take one oxygen and move them to the side, and you're going to rip those hydrogens off. And now so you've got like these carbon-oxygen molecules, and then you have all of these oxygen atoms off to the side, and you have a bunch of hydrogen atoms that you're also going to use. That carbon-oxygen molecule, that carbon and oxygen kind of put together, that's called carbon monoxide. So if you get carbon monoxide poisoning from sitting around the exhaust pipe of your car, that's what carbon monoxide is. It's carbon with 1 oxygen, mono-oxygen, whereas when you have 2 oxygens, it's dioxide. All right, anyway, back to making our glucose.